What did you think? Incredible, right?
Yeah, in so many ways. Remember what I said before we went off air, before the race started, of the 12 podium positions coming into this race in Baku, 5 of them came from drivers 5th or lower on the grid. But look what happens today. I mean, yeah, you could say that Lewis Hamilton's problems and Max Verstappen's problems and all those sorts of things were one-offs. But this is Baku. This is what happens on a track like this. And, you couldn't be happier for Perez, for Vettel, and for Gasly to be on that podium.
Well, we are so excited to talk about this race, but we have a very special guest holding, and we're going to go straight to him because there's been some really interesting discussions this week in Formula One.
It's not just on-track stuff.
That's right. It's not just on track. But so we want to welcome to the show the chairman and CEO of Circuit of the Americas, Bobby Epstein. Bobby, welcome to Speed City.
Good morning. Thanks.
Thank you for coming on. And I know you're just fresh off an incredible weekend with NASCAR at Circuit of the Americas. So congratulations on that, first off.
Thanks, John.
And
it was good.
Yeah, the crowds were incredible. It was really fun to be out there and see those crowds.
Well, it was great. It rained a lot, and what was really great was to see the parking lots did not empty at all during the race.
True.
And everybody stuck around.
Yeah, nobody left. You're absolutely right. And Bobby, when I was standing there, I was standing in the pits looking left and right. It looked like a Formula One race. The Turn 1 grandstands were full. The main grandstands were full. The hill leading up to Turn 1 was full. It was really pretty electric feeling out there.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great to see people back. I know Austin is starting to embrace the racing events. It's not in the history of the city. Formula One's been kind of the dominant player, and it was also new to everyone. And so I think we saw a lot more local fans starting to come out and enjoy the fun of the track.
Bobby, we got to ask you, we woke up Friday morning to a bit of a surprise, and I'm sure it was for you too, that we were hearing from Baku that we were going to have a doubleheader at Austin at the Circuit of the Americas. Can you verify or give us any inkling of what that might look like, given that Singapore has now been cancelled?
Well, I woke up to a lot of text messages and calls about that too. So, Jonathan, I think the word possibility was what was usually part of those sentences was it's possible we might see a doubleheader in Austin. And I think that's the key word. It's the conversations haven't even begun. So other than a question at one point, which was if COVID forces some cancellations, would the circuit be available? And we said, sure, we can look at it. And that's really been it at this point. I'm sure we'll talk more about it this week or in the coming weeks if it becomes something that they want to do. But I think it's far premature to start booking the hotel rooms.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's also hard to follow a typical, what will be a 2-year celebration, Billy Joel, everything else, the week after or the week before. So I don't know how that would look, but it's great to hear that you're open to the possibility.
Yeah, sure. I think everybody who had a permanent circuit last year got asked that question at some point. Or I know they did. And it's typical this year also. If you've got a permanent track, you've got some flexibility, and you want to do all you can to help the sport, and you want to help them get the number of races they need to complete both the FIA requirements, but also their TV contracts. I mean, there's a lot to fulfill in trying to put on an F1 season, and the logistics are very hard. And so anytime you can make your track available and be part of a 2-race week, it's certainly something to consider.
Yeah, I think.
Bobby,
Go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead. Well, my question is, knowing a little bit about all that goes into putting on the race that you have on the schedule with all the volunteers and the concessions and all the things that go into putting on a Formula One Grand Prix, are you saying it's possible that kind of effort could be extended to put on another race? Or would you need to go toward the NASCAR model where you basically rent the racetrack to the sanctioning body and let them handle all those details?
Well, Bob, it's early to try and figure that out, except to say we wouldn't want to do anything that compromises the incredible event that the United States Grand Prix is, and
Right.
the planning for which starts, way more than a year in advance. So I think if we did have another weekend, I don't see it being quite the same sort of show and have the same schedule. And I don't know about support races. I mean, it's really early to talk about that, but certainly it's tough. I can't see it being the U.S. Grand Prix type event.
Well, Bob, there's been discussions about the possibility of Indy hosting the same race as well. I have no idea about what their logistics and all that would be, but now that we've got Miami, I mean, having the excitement of Miami and COTA and Indy and all that, but I have no idea if that is a good thing or a bad thing for you. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it'd be fine. I know the teams have expressed concern about Indianapolis being hard to do in October. Their first frost, I think, is on average October 10th or 11th. We could probably Google that. But I think that's one of the concerns that they'd have about going to Indy in October. But, I think Miami's going to be super complimentary to what we're doing. And I think Indianapolis could be the same. It just has to find the right spot on the calendar. So I know that's one of the factors that has to be weighed. And then when you try and do back-to-back weeks, as we know, the strain on the teams and the employees that move around with this, it's asking a lot. And I think we have Mexico right after us.
Yeah, and thinking about October, it's such a wonderful time in Austin. And, of course, I'm sure that one of the first things that popped in everybody's head is that we've got the vaccination rolled out so well here that is no longer...
Including at COTA.
Yeah, including the vaccinations you did out there. but the fact that we've already got 60-something%, and by that in October, we could be 70, 80% vaccinated, so that becomes a zero issue. I'm sure that's been a big part of the discussion, too.
Well, I hope the rest of the world makes the same progress that we've made, and we saw how fast we went from just between February and May. I think that things can get better really fast when the vaccines start to roll out, and I think the U.S. being almost back to normal in terms of crowds or the ability to host events is a good thing, and I think hopefully that continues elsewhere.
Bobby, just to clarify for our national audience, because we've had you on locally, and we saw you at NASCAR. But there was always this rumor of Miami and Indy and other events. The purpose of Liberty going down this road is to increase the popularity of Formula One in America. So this can only complement what you are doing at the Circuit of the Americas. Is that how you see this?
Absolutely. The more races we have in our time zone and the opportunity for F1 fans in the U.S., I mean, we're up this morning early to watch a race, but it is easier to follow when it's the middle of the afternoon. And the more races we get on in what I'll call prime time sports afternoons, the better it is for all of us.
Yeah.
What did you think of the race, Bobby, in Baku?
Well, we're excited that first I'm happy for Sebastian because it's fun to see him, and I think for us from marketing and popularity standpoint to have Perez, to see Sergio up there, that's a great thing. And as you said, we're happy for Gasly, but I felt it's just going to do a lot of good for the excitement and for people following it. And yeah, the mechanical and tire issues that happened are an absolute shame. You hate to see races determined like that. I think it's one of the things people like about things like COTA, where the on-track racing hopefully determines the outcome of the race. You have the opportunity for so many opportunities for passing, but a race in Baku like that is part of what makes F1 special, seeing the races through the city streets and historic areas like that with that backdrop. So I think it was a great event. I think it was a great day.
Bobby, while we've got you, shameless plug, tickets are on sale for the U.S. Grand Prix, am I right?
They are, but we're trying to put more on sales. Ticket sales were great, sold out, and
wow.
And it's one of the things that makes us excited for Miami. I think there'll be they're going to sell out also, and the U.S. is going to keep growing. The sports popularity is going to keep growing in the U.S.
Bobby, we had the mayor of Miami Gardens on in the pre-show, and if you don't mind, I'll send him your number. He has lots of questions about how to get it.
Well, we've invited him over for the Grand Prix,
Yeah.
so, and with the precursor of barbecue, so he's coming.
Yeah, I watched part of that. Or maybe a teaser for it.
Yeah. Well, Bobby Epstein, thank you so much for coming on, and we are very excited about this rumor. So let's see how it plays out, and we'll stay in touch with you, and hopefully this will come true because it would be a dream for us.
Yeah, we'll know a lot more in the coming weeks. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Oh, that is such a fantastic thought.
I'm glad he's open to it.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed he would be open to it, but it sure was nice to hear him say that.
Yeah.
And, well, hey, look, we got Dave O'Neill on the line, and who better to ask about what just happened in Baku?
Please explain what happened in the last hour.
Yeah, Dave, what the heck did we just see with this crazy tire situation? There was even, the commentators on television were even talking about backing up and giving the win to Max Verstappen. That blew me away. I didn't know what they were talking about. But what do you think, Dave?
Well, it was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, that's why you keep tuning in, just hoping you're going to
Yeah.
see a race like that. It's great. It kind of it didn't do too much to the championship, but what it did is it brought, I guess, Sergio back into the mix and a couple of the others. So for me, it was a great race, and I don't see any harm in having those, 3 or 4 times a year. I think they're fantastic.
You know what, Dave, you say that, what keeps us tuning in, but we've been on a roll here. I think we have to go all the way back to what? Paul Ricard, way back, because we've been on such a roll with great racing this year and the end of last year. So, I mean, Formula One, that discussion about boring racing, that is long gone now for a good while. I mean, don't you guys think that the racing has just been incredible?
Oh, absolutely. And to answer your question about the announcers being confused, I think the scenario that David Croft and Paul DiResta were talking about on the air deals with a race that is definitely going to restart. I don't think it's a scenario for end of race where you go back to the last complete lap to establish the order of finish. It establishes your order of the restart. And since Max Verstappen was unavailable, then Sergio Perez led away and off we all went. So I think that was the thing there. I also noted a statistical nuance during the race is that Lance Stroll's left rear tire gave out on virtually the same lap as Max Verstappen's left rear gave out. Each tire was within one lap of 30 laps old when it failed. So I'd say Pirelli has a lot of work to do because Paul Ricard, where we're going, is also a high-speed racetrack, and they're going to want to answer some questions about those tires.
Yeah, well, there's lots to discuss here. Let's go ahead and get the break in real quick, and when we come back, we'll continue to break down the Formula One Azerbaijan Grand Prix. You're listening to Speed City, back after these messages.
Hi guys, this is Pierre Gasly, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 Post-Race Show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Use the cloud to secure your team in the office, at the track, or anywhere with CrowdStrike at crowdstrike.com/anywhere. All right, gentlemen, there's so much to talk about, but I think we've got to discuss what happened with Hamilton on the restart, the brakes, because I was speculating. I saw the brakes steaming, and obviously he, locked it up, and everybody blew past him, and he ended up finishing last. But Bob and Jonathan, both of you guys Jonathan, you heard some team radio that I missed about what Hamilton said.
Well, he got on the radio, right? I mean, literally as the podium was starting to start, and there was a little radio message that said, "Hey guys, did I mess the magic up?" And what we think that was referring to was the brake bias, which is pushing the brake bias to the front to heat the front tires up, and using the brakes to help get temperature into those tires. But his engineer came back and said, "Don't sweat it, Lewis. It may have been on the upshift that you knocked the button, or you clicked it back so that basically the car was wrongly biased as he went into that corner."
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not confirmed. Oh,
yeah.
I'll tell you what, let's play it.
I thought it was a failure until we saw from behind. We saw that Hamilton went straight onto the corner and then turned and got right back on the track. So he had brakes, which I thought was his original problem.
Well, we got that radio transmission. Producer says, let's hear that.
Did I have the magic on?
Yeah, bud. Yeah, just knock that on.
I could have sworn I turned it off.
Yeah, you did. But knocked it on with the upshift.
And what he means by the magic is to use that, to use that bias. That's what we're presuming. But he says you knocked it accidentally in the upshift. So that is, as far as we can glean, Lewis admitting or trying to understand what happened and what went wrong.
Well, let's ask Dave O'Neill, because who better to at least have this discussion? I mean, Dave, look, we've all been there. I've been there in a streetcar in a Corvette when boiled the brake fluid and hit the pedal and nothing happens is what it looked like to me, but it's obviously a lot more complicated. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. We can just surmise, but the obvious thing would be we saw all the smoke coming out of the brakes as Lewis got to his grid position.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things I'd point is that they've boiled the fluid, or he's boiled the fluid. So, i.e., the brakes have got really hot, and then the fluid boiled, and when that happens in that situation, you need to pump the pedal at least twice to get the pedal back. So maybe that was what happened. The other thing is with the magic button. Again, don't quite know the ins and outs of it, but obviously the bias on the brakes is really, really important when you're regenerating the energy from the back of the car. So he could have been trying to warm the rear tyres up by putting the brake balance to the rear as well, because all four wheels were smoking. So if he had all the brakes at the rear, it would affect the braking at the front going into the first corner. I don't know what they're doing, probably 120 off the start, something like that. So there's probably another reason for it. So those two reasons I would have thought attributed to that. I shouldn't think he made a mistake. It's highly unlikely from Lewis.
Mm. Well, look, we have to talk about the way this race finished. Obviously, with Sergio Perez winning, that's incredible. Sebastian Vettel coming in second, that's incredible. And Gasly on the podium. I mean, this is just blow the back of your head off fun, exciting with the way this finished, guys. I mean, like Bobby said, what about how the Mexican Grand Prix now, the excitement in Austin?
You don't suppose that sold a few tickets, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And driver of the day, of course, was a landslide with Sebastian Vettel. We've been talking about Vettel getting better, and Bob, you've been spot on this all season about him having to have the car the right way. Maybe he has now got that car figured out, is what it looks like to me.
Well, whatever it's been dramatic, because his first three races, he finished right around 15th place. And then in Monaco, he jumps to 5th, and now a podium in 2nd. So, obviously good things are happening for that team, as opposed to, say, Ferrari, where, Leclerc and Sainz in particular had days I'm sure they'd rather forget.
Mm-hmm.
But, as we've said before, some teams go away with positives to think about. Other teams go away thinking, what on earth just happened?
Yeah, so let's just run down the order real quick. Perez, Vettel, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Alonso in 6th, Yuki Tsunoda, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, Kimi Räikkönen in 10th in the points, Giovinazzi, Bottas, Schumacher, Mazepin, Hamilton, Latifi, and then Russell, Verstappen, Stroll, and Ocon did not finish. So look, you got Kimi Räikkönen in the points. That's a good one. Yuki Tsunoda in
the first
7th.
time this year. Yep.
Yeah, first time this year. But let's talk about the points. The championship now. Before the restart, we thought it was a disaster. We thought it was going to be a 28-point swing
to Verstappen, yeah.
To Hamilton.
Sorry, to Hamilton.
From Verstappen. And now we got to look at the points, but and of course now that Red Bull, Perez finished. They hold on to the championship lead, the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah.
So Drivers' Championship is, you're still going to have with Max in the lead. So this is really has tons of impact to the championship.
Isn't it?
I had to do the math in my head.
Of the year?
What's that, Dave?
I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably Haas's best finish of the season.
Yeah. And in fact, there was a real battle. Mazepin took Schumacher on the last lap, and then Schumacher drag raced him down to the finish on the back straight, on the front straight to the line.
Oh, that's going to cause controversy because if it was just a drag race, then and they must have given Schumacher a better car.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Start that argument. Let's see. The guy funding the team's son is in the car that lost. Oh, no.
You're going straight to hell from that one.
Bob,
We got a caller.
Oh, that's right. We do have a caller on the line. Let's see. Do we still have Mike? Yeah. Well, Mike. Hey, Mike. Welcome to Speed City.
Hey, how are you guys this morning?
Doing good. What'd you think of that race?
Well, I have to admit that I overslept, and when I turned it on, it was just getting to the first tire failure.
Well, you missed nothing.
From that point, I did miss the start one. But the question I want to say is again, I have already spoke to this as far as the championship. It was probably the best and worst things that could happen to Max in the same race.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it really got exciting, I thought, after the restart, just that, 2-lap shootout, not to take someone else's language, but does Formula One need to relook at how they race? Do they need to stop the races a couple of times through and start again?
Hey, you know what? I know that.
Hey, this ain't NASCAR.
Oh, that's fine.
But you know what? Everybody says it's crazy. But look, in the last year, nothing is off the table, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, I even heard somebody I think it was Mark Priestley's YouTube show. They were talking about, does F1 want to consider an oval because of all the discussions? I know everybody's shaking their head, but look, nothing's off the table at this point. And Mike, why not at least have the discussion? And yeah, maybe it's not as simple as what you just said, but let's not throw anything out.
Cats and dogs living together?
Exactly. Well, hey, let me get a word in from our sponsor. Has your workforce moved from the office to the home or to the garage or maybe a rented cabin with open Wi-Fi? If your company has expanded outside the office and moved all your applications to the cloud, there's a whole new world of threats you have to worry about, including ransomware. CrowdStrike revolutionized security by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most advanced cyber attacks, even those that have never been seen before. So now you can work securely anywhere. Try CrowdStrike Falcon free today. Protect your data and employees anywhere. Welcome to Anywhere. CrowdStrike. We stop breaches. Access the CrowdStrike Falcon platform free at crowdstrike.com/anywhere. Well, Mike, thanks for calling, buddy. We are running short on time. We're going to let you go. We appreciate you calling in. Appreciate you listening. And so, gentlemen, this has restored my faith in Formula One in the last year or so. The racing has been fantastic. This is carrying on the racing that we've seen. The championship is turned upside down. Again, exactly. Jonathan, what are you looking for from this point forward?
I'm looking for a continuation of this. I think we've got a real battle on our hand. I think finally Mercedes are on the back foot. Look at Bottas's performance. Forget what Hamilton for a second. AlphaTauri are there. Ferrari are there. Red Bull are very much there. Perez is going to have his tail high. There's so much going on this year. This is the year we wanted.
Yeah. And, it's talking about Perez, and I'll go to you, Bob, real quick, but Perez, this is the what we're looking for all season, or Red Bull was, having them up there together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bob, what about you?
Well, time and again, and Perez is not the only one who said this, but you hear new drivers to several teams saying, this is not the car I'm used to. I'm having to try to understand it. And that's the exact word that Perez used this week. He said, I'm beginning to understand the car, and he obviously proved it, both in Monaco, but particularly here in Baku. What happens going forward? There is so much that's still undecided. We don't know which races are actually going to happen because of the pandemic. Will they get to 23? Maybe it'll be fewer. And where will those races take place? I mean, there is so much that is not known going forward. This is going to be quite a season.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, we are out of time. Dave O'Neill, thank you, sir. We appreciate you coming on. Bob Varsha, Jonathan Green, thanks for all the callers and all those who tuned in. And, of course, we will talk to you next Sunday night.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. We have lots to talk about, and we're also going to have a guest on the show here in just a few minutes. A young driver, David Malukas. He's racing in the Road to Indy and the Indylights platform, and leading the championship right now.
Kicking some ass, 3 wins.
So yeah, 3 wins. So we will have him on the show here shortly. But there's so much to talk about. I mean, one thing I definitely want to get in before we miss an opportunity is to talk about the Monaco Grand Prix numbers in Formula One on ESPN.
Yeah.
It was 934,000 viewers. Now, if you don't follow the numbers, that's big for Formula One. I mean, that's approaching what you see in some of the NASCAR and IndyCar races, and that's the 4th largest cable audience ever in Formula One.
Yeah, that is really, really good for Formula One. And I do believe Liberty's hope to grow the sport here in the States is now taking hold. And I think with Miami, we heard from Bobby, open to, a rumor goes around Baku, and what's the first Grand Prix they talk about? It's Austin. And I think that was kind of willful thinking probably by the journalists. But at the same time, there's also, like Bobby says, it makes a lot of sense. If you can help Formula One out in a bind and you have a permanent circuit and you're free that weekend, come on, let's do it.
Yeah, and everybody thinking about the number of people that are watching the Netflix. There's just so many good things that are happening. And Bob, you've said it before. You've said that you've seen the excitement for races in the United States, to gain this momentum. But does this feel like something that's beyond what you've seen in the past?
I don't know if it's beyond. It's always kind of an open-ended question. I know that the whole Formula One world wants to race more in America. It's just the manufacturers for commercial reasons. The drivers love it here. The teams love to come here. I think another race in the United States, certainly in this pandemic year, would be a welcome treat. I just, having spoken with Bobby Epstein and thinking about what it takes to put on a race of the quality that you want to have at a place like Circuit of the Americas is such a task. The one question I wish I had asked Bobby, and I always have a million questions I wish I'd asked, but mine is, what's your drop deadline? When do you need to know something in order to pull something together? So, I think it would be great, and I think it would be a really good measure, more than those 934,000 viewers you were talking about, a great measure of the enthusiasm for Formula One in the United States. If you just threw it out there and say, okay, we got 100,000 seats for a date that was never on the schedule. What do you think? And see how fast they disappear.
Yeah, when John told me about it, because he called me up all gleefully saying, hey, back to back. And I was like, but how can you pull off a Billy Joel and 250,000 people and what was that? I can't forget the other band, but it is cooked into being a big grand reopening for Formula One in America, and to do one either the week before or the week after can only be not a damp squib, but it has to be different. Could you run the track the other way? I don't know, but it would have to be. I mean, that said, Austria pulled it off, and it was engaging and interesting, and it worked, and so did Silverstone.
Yeah, and so did Bahrain. Because they ran the different circuit. And somebody said to me, could COTA run the circuit, the cutoff, what is it, at turn 7? It would be, I said no, because that would be a 30-second lap or whatever.
We could run up to I-130, up to to Georgetown and back.
Yeah, I-130
You know what, Jonathan, if you're worried about the Music Act, I think if you put it out there in the music community that you're going to have 200,000 people at Circuit of the Americas and you need an entertainment act, see what you get.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think you get plenty of takers on that.
Yeah, like the 50 bands that missed ACL this year.
Hey, speaking of big numbers.
Oh, he's on.
Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave. I didn't realize you were there, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to say, with the circuits that are, like Circuit of the Americas and Silverstone in Austria, a little bit easier. And I think one of the reasons why Singapore was pulled off was when I was there, did the races there, the amount of time it takes to put the infrastructure in, they normally start in April. So it's typically 5 to 6 months to get ready for a Grand Prix. And, once you pass that deadline or threshold, it's physically impossible. All the concrete blocks and wiring and lights and all that sort of stuff are stored in Malaysia, I believe. So you have to move all of that equipment in. You have to shut the city down and get all the permits. So I think, seeing double headers in purpose-built circuits, certainly a little bit easier. And probably the thing we're going to see in the future is probably a bit more of that.
Yeah, well, Dave, let's think about the logistics of the way this calendar is laid out, because right now you've got Singapore and then Japan, then the week off, and then COTA. Is the natural to just slot it into that week before? Because you've got Mexico, isn't it the week after? Or it's the week after, right? And so could you slot it in? Is that even logistically possible?
I think it is, yeah. From memory, one of the hardest ones to do was normally Abu Dhabi from the Americas type thing. And as long as you get in, and landed all the freight by Monday night or Tuesday morning, it's possible to put everything up and get going again. What a lot of the teams, or most of the teams, all the teams have is 6-7 sets of sea freight equipment, and so does F1 as well for all the camera equipment and cabling. But the logistical issue is where those boats or containers are on the ocean at any one time. So it's not just, ring up Billy Joel and tell him to come a day later or a week later. You're talking 4 or 5 weeks of float time in some cases for a lot of the equipment that's on the ocean. So the implications are, yes, it's like, ring up Bobby and say, okay, we're going to go for a double header. It's probably going to be reasonably easy for him to make that happen. But the equipment that's on the ocean or on the road or hasn't floated from one country to the other yet is the biggest problem for the teams.
Yeah, and I think in the same vein, there is now talk of potentially Japan and Brazil, because of COVID, also following in suit with Singapore because of what they're dealing with. We'll find out with Japan with the Olympics, obviously, and you've all been aware of the what they've been saying. That Japan want it, but is it possible? And if it doesn't happen, the Olympics, that is this summer, then you've got to think that Formula One would soon follow.
Yeah, I with due respect to everything Dave said about the logistics of the thing, I'm just looking at the calendar. If Japan were not to happen on October 10th, which is 2 weeks after Sochi in Russia, that creates a 1, 2, 3, 4 week gap between races. So instead of, Mexico is the following week, you could put 2 races at a place like COTA, if the equipment is there, 2 weeks apart, and give everybody,
good point,
the time to take a deep breath.
And have some barbecue.
The possibilities are a lot of fun to think about. They may be impossible to overcome, but it's an interesting idea, I think.
Yeah. And there is a precedent. I mean, we ran the World Endurance Championship here in February when Brazil was cancelled in 2020, just before the pandemic struck.
Yeah. But it would have to be a permanent circuit like COTA. You couldn't cobble together a temporary circuit somewhere, for all the reasons Dave pointed out. It's just impossible.
And by the way, from what I've read about Indianapolis, I believe the quote I read was that Roger Penske, is in talks with Formula One, but about 2022, not 2021.
Yeah.
Or even beyond. Yeah.
Well, Indy's a great example of a place that can turn that road course into an oval track in the course of like 48 to 72 hours.
Sure. Yeah. But as Bobby mentioned, frost comes in October. You couldn't, you got to be careful.
Yeah. Can't fool Mother Nature.
1 week, October 17th, that week before, that's a fantastic time in Austin, like I was saying. But and you remember when Roger Penske purchased Indianapolis? It was one of the in that press conference. He said,
"Oh yeah,
we want to look at other things like Formula One." Was his first example. So I think what the captain wants, the captain gets.
Absolutely. Whatever that ship sails, he's on it.
He does things properly, so he's not going to jump into something to just to get someone else out of a bind. You know, it's going to be well planned, and he's going to execute it properly.
Hey, Dave. Speaking of what you just said, I mean, do you think that he has the respect across the world like he does here in the United States? You know, in Formula One and all the others.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. You know, his attention to detail is well in and with the lines of, you know, Ron Dennis, and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to do it, and he's got the backing, and he can just do it. So it will be really nice to see.
And to get political, he's also still on the board of Philip Morris. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. All right, gentlemen, we need to take a break, but when we come back, we have young driver David Malukas coming on the show. You're listening to Speed City live from Austin, Texas. Back after these messages.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Welcome back to the show. I think the adrenaline is finally getting out of my system after the Formula One Azerbaijan Grand Prix. What a fantastic finish to that. But we are going to talk American racing now because we have a young driver on the phone joining us via Zoom to talk about his career, David Malukas. David, welcome to Speed City.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, congratulations on a fantastic season so far in Indylights, leading the championship, in 3 races?
Yeah, it's been intense. I mean, it's still really, really close. Everything's kind of still, he say, she say, but I mean, it's been really spot on so far.
Well, just to give you an update, he's got 3 wins. He's leading by 151 points over Linus Lundqvist, another friend of the show, and his teammate. But he beat my Englishman, Toby Sowery, by 0.0283. I saw the picture of it. I mean, you were literally crossing the line together in your last race. So you're all about close finishes. But great start to the year for you.
Yeah, I mean, that Indy race was the most stressful. I mean, so far, everyone's kind of been stressful. I mean, St. Pete, you look at Kyle Kirkwood, he was coming in on me going into race 2. And I was like, that can't get any more stressful than that. And then we go into Indy, and it was even more intense. But I'm just saying on my side, I did that on purpose. You know, we didn't get the Freedom 100 this year. So I wanted to give a Freedom 100 finish for you guys.
There you go.
David, you are now in, what Wikipedia says is your 6th year of racing, and you're only 19 years of age. Your family hails from Lithuania, which makes you a first-generation American. My question is, how did you get involved in racing? Is this a family effort, or is this just you?
So my dad, he used to race in a Corvette in 2005, and I used to always go with him in Road America. I kind of call it as my home track, just because ever since I was like 5 years old, I used to watch him. And when I was 7 years old, I was kind of a bit of an introvert. I never really wanted to go out much. I was kind of more inside and just playing with Hot Wheels. But we ended up seeing an advert for like a go-kart track in South Bend, Indiana. So we went with a couple of friends. We had a really good time. I mean, I just kept going, once, twice, 3 times. And after, it was probably a couple of months, somebody's like, hey, do you want to, kind of take this to the next step? We could do some championships here or there, and I can coach your son. And so it kind of just kicked off from there. We never really realized until it didn't hit me, I was in Le Mans, France, all of a sudden racing, the world championships in X30 world finals. And I was like, okay, so this is kind of pretty serious now. It's not more for for fun anymore. I mean, it still is, but yeah, it kind of just came out of nowhere. We weren't really expecting it, but.
Well, David, we have another Dave on the line. We have Dave O'Neill, who's heavily involved in racing still and was the team manager for the Haas F1 team. And are your aspirations to work in to race in Formula One or an IndyCar? I mean, obviously you're on the Indylights road right now. But I mean, what have your aspirations been all this time?
Well, it's, it kind of switched, because when I was in my first years, I started off in the F4 series in Germany. and Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So when I was during that period, it was kind of more, going towards Formula One, but kind of being over there, you kind of realize being in Formula One is very, very tough. I mean, of course, it's every single driver's dream, but everything needs to go perfect. You need the money. Everything needs to be straight in line. And, for me coming from the US, it was very, very hard to kind of keep flying back and forth. And so I had to make a decision to either set base, in somewhere in Europe or, come back to the US. And I wanted to come back to the US. It was kind of home to me. And I thought the Road to Indy Series would suit me much better. And I think so far it has. So for now, my main goal is IndyCar, which I am through the roof if I do end up going there, which so far it seems like it's pretty good.
Have you heard from any teams yet? I mean, here you are leading the championship with 3 victories already. Has anybody slipped you a business card or anything like that?
I have gotten a few requests and little talks here and there. I got an invitation to Ray Hall's team, also from Carlin as well. So yeah, there's little talks here and there. I don't want to say much because I don't know how much is supposed to be under the books. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I got the word from it, I was like, oh man, this is kind of curious now. I really just went home and straight to the gym.
Hey, but you know what, David, you want to follow up, Bob?
No, that's okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, just one thing I would mention, we've had lots of young Americans on the show, and we often talk about that transition to Europe, simply because you want to test yourself against the best. What I do notice in Indylights this year, and maybe it's partly because of the pandemic, but there are 5 Americans, but you've got Canadians, Devlin DeFrancesco, you've got Singapore, England, Russia, Denmark, and you've got Linus Lundqvist, who you know very well, obviously as a teammate and from last year, but you really are now being tested against the very best in the world. So in a weird way, you don't have to go to Europe to prove yourself, because I think you're racing against, and Kyle Kirkwood, without a doubt, one of our great talents. So the fact that you're on top of that group shows those teams, whether they be Trevor Carlin or whether they be Roger Penske, that you have what it takes to beat the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all stands by the Road to Indy Series. A lot of drivers from Europe and all over the world come to do this series mainly because of, the championship earnings. I mean, if you win the championship, for Indylights now, I think it's 1.4 million, going into IndyCar. So, I think the series kind of just speaks for itself. And then that's what invites all these great drivers. But I think for us to be doing so well along these big names, Toby Sowery, I kind of call him my brother from another team, is kind of the saying I'm going as for now. I know he's amazing. So I think in these years, me being 19, I think every year I mature quite a bit in my driving.
Hey, so Dave O'Neill, what a piece of advice would you have for David at this point in his career?
Well, I think your attitude is perfect. You just got to make sure you make as many friends as you can in the pit lane, and also the biggest thing is putting yourself in the right position at the right time. You forever hear people that are quick that don't make it. I never got a clear lap type thing, and the only person who can put you there is yourself. So my advice to you would be carrying on, as you're going, keep the good attitude up, and keep off the phone and go knock on more doors while you're in the paddock, telling people what you can do for them.
Good advice.
No charge, David. No charge for that, because that's a man you want to listen to.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, okay, PayPal number.
He's taking notes. I can see you, Mr. O'Neill. He's taking notes.
Well, I can back up what Dave just said, because I've been in meetings on another subject where I have heard officials from various teams saying, well, let's look at this guy because he's persistent. He keeps putting himself in front of us. He says, he wants to drive for us. So, that's the guy they're going to turn to first. And the other piece of advice someone once gave me when my son was racing was pick the hairiest series that you think you can win races in, because the important thing is to win races and put up that lap time. And not break the race car, and not be a jerk, and all those other things.
Yeah, add it to the list.
Yeah.
So what are your hopes? Obviously you're going for the championship, but what is your 3-year plan, David?
It kind of keeps changing every single race. Going in, it's, second year for Indylights for me. I mean, our whole plan was, to do really, really well. I mean, I was definitely expecting to win, a few races here and there with the team I'm in, but to be honest, we kind of been outperforming the certain goals that I already had set, which I mean is always a really good thing. I mean, it depends on how this series goes. If we end up winning the championship, I mean, it's going to be I don't know, man. Every single day, I mean, I'm talking with the team managers, everything. It kind of keeps changing, but I think more towards the end of the season, we'll kind of figure out what our plan is.
Do you have a manager of your own, David?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. I think that's a good move too.
Yes. Yeah, it's especially for PR and like social media, which it's still a little bit kind of not so great, but I kind of realize how important it is. Especially you look at these drivers like Oliver Askew, who I was racing with. I looked at his Instagram and Facebook and stuff. It was normal, but then as soon as he goes into IndyCar, I mean, every single day he's posting and doing this and that. So I kind of was like, oh, okay. I mean, this looks like I should probably get more towards into that as well.
To follow on what Dave O'Neill and what Bob has said, one of the things, and obviously being in the media, I've met a lot of young drivers, and I think you need to be pushy, with the media too, which is make yourself available, have a comment on Formula One like you've done this morning, and also, be present. And I was really impressed to see how when Indylights disappeared during the pandemic, and I thought about all you drivers, because taking a year out, you can be forgotten, and you can lose your rustiness, you can get rusty pretty quick. But you made that smart move, which is to get into the FR series, which wouldn't have been an easy thing to do, given that you were on the road to Indy, just to keep your eye in, and you did well. And that must have been an important year during the pandemic to keep things going.
Yeah, I mean, you look at drivers like Toby Sowery. He was really, really good. Ended the Indylights off. I mean, like putting in podium finishes, and now we come into this new season and. He's a little bit lacking. I mean, I even talked to him and he said, man, I'm just rusty. I haven't done anything in a whole year and it's really affecting me. And I think for us to make that decision to go to FR, which we only had a 2 weeks notice after the cancellation to get the car, put our setup on it, and then go to Mid-Ohio without any testing, first time in the car, and just go and practice. So it was really intense, but I'm really happy we ended up getting it through. I mean, not just for me, but also the team. I think they were really, really happy to just be doing something that year.
So, David, what race is next in your season, and what are your expectations there?
So next up is Detroit, which is actually going to be really
next
interesting
weekend.
Because nobody's been there before. So it's going to be an even playing field. Nobody's going to have a little bit of here or there on the data, and neither will the drivers. So I'm actually really excited to see how we all kind of stack up.
Call Oliver Askew or Connor Daly.
Yeah.
Because I presume Oliver's... No, maybe not. I don't know. But you're right. That's going to be very interesting and a great circuit. You'll love Belle Isle. Really good fun.
Yeah, I'm trying to find kind of like little bits of data and video and try to get some sim into it. But it's I don't know. I've heard from past experience for street races, you don't really want to be doing too much sim work. But yeah, I'm trying to do as much as I can to prepare.
Well, I noticed that the one oval you've got is actually in Illinois. You're from Chicago. That's going to be another interesting one. But you've got a lot of northern sort of local races roughly to you, including Road America and Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, we chose a really good spot to live. Everything's kind of just around 2 or 3 hours of a drive. But yeah, no, I mean, we've done Gateway before, and we ended up with a P3, and I'm really excited for it. It's I'm kind of itching to get back into an oval. I feel like it's been so long.
Yeah, well, how much time have you had on ovals?
Well, I mean, since last season testing, I think we did in Memphis. I mean, like 2 years back, that's the last time I've been on an oval. I mean, we're leading up, going before Gateway, where we'll be doing another one-day test somewhere, but it's, I haven't done, I mean, any oval. I mean, without the Freedom 100, there's been no point to really even test in it. So yeah, it's been kind of lacking, which I'm really sad.
Well, you have obviously where you are in your career right now with, like Bob said earlier, with being so young and all this really great racing under your belt, I feel like you got a really bright future. I mean, just leading the championship Indylights, that's a huge deal in itself. And, we just want to wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season. And thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, this is awesome. I would always love to do this. I always enjoy these. thank you for the wishes. I mean, I'm going to try my best, stay consistent. I mean, so far it's been really, really good, but I'm happy with wherever we end up. And so far I'm through the moon. So thank you guys.
All right, David Malukas, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Thanks, David.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, gentlemen, we just have a little bit of time left. And Jonathan, there was a couple of stories that you had put in our show document that we wanted to talk about. Speaking of IndyCar, they had the biggest audience in 5 years, not the biggest crowd in the stands, but the biggest audience on television.
Yes, and I think we were joking about this yesterday. Look at the Indy field now. I know Elio won the 500, but look at who is coming to Indy. Alex Palou, Pato O'Ward, Alonso's been in and out. Are we creating, I mean, now Grosjean and now, Magnussen. I mean, are we creating American racing, that is, a great home when Formula One, as David just pointed out, is not impossible, but very, very hard. It's a unicorn sport, let's face it. So, are we getting some really, really good talent given that America, is got a bigger grid and more chance?
Yeah. And I just imagine that, there's been so much interest in the Indy 500 from the Formula One side. It seems like a lot more than it used to be. But guys, I just looked up. We're almost out of time. What do you got, Jonathan?
Well, just that Liberty have said outwardly that they don't want to clash with Indy, as Bernie used to
with
want
the 500.
to do.
Right. Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Bob Varsha, Dave O'Neill, Jonathan Green. Thanks everybody for tuning in. To all those that called in. Thanks to our guest David Malukas, and of course, check us out on our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, and we will talk to you next Sunday.